It's Ash from Super Videos back for another video for The Last of Us on HBO. On this video, we're going to be taking a look at when we can expect to see Abby in the TV universe and also whether we're going to see a different Abby in the TV universe than the game. So stay tuned, we'll be right back to break this down. Alright, as always, before we dive into it, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. Now, obviously, based on a lot of the interviews that the showrunners, Neil Druckmann, who is also the creator of the game, and Craig Mazin have done, they've talked a lot about how part 1 of the game will be in Season 1. So the entirety of Season 1 will be part 1 of the game. Now, when it comes to part 2, based on the things that they've talked about, it definitely appears that we are most likely gonna see Season 2 of the HBO adaptation, giving us the story for part 2 of the game. Now, Craig Mazin did actually say something very interesting, which is that the entirety of part 2 of the game may not necessarily translate exactly to one season of the TV adaptation. So that's definitely interesting. Now, if you think about it, story-wise, in the game, part 1 had more story than part 2. If you eliminate all of the gameplay and eliminate all of the repetitive back and forth from the story and stuff like that, then part 2, I think, has maybe less story than part 1. If not less, then probably the same. So the fact that they were able to do the entirety of part 1 of the game in one season, plus a lot of expanded stories and character developments that we didn't see in the game, then it's definitely odd that they're not able to do the same for part 2. So maybe as a result of the backlash of the story of part 2, they are actually gonna change the Abby character a little bit, or at least give us a more spread out story for her. Now, what do I mean by that? I think what we could end up seeing is a story where part 2 actually gives us a more expanded story for both Ellie and Abby in part 2. And this expanded story will be even before what happens with Joel and kind of starting up that revenge story between these two characters. So we might actually end up seeing Season 2 of the TV adaptation giving us Abby's backstory, making the audience feel more connected to the character and giving us a much more in-depth story as far as her connection to the Fireflies and all of that. They might do the same thing with Ellie and Joel. And what I mean by that is we could see a lot of the stuff that we really needed in part 2 between Joel and Ellie before Joel was written out of the story in the TV adaptation. And that would fix a lot of the problems that a lot of fans had about part 2, which had to do with them taking Joel out too early and not really developing the story the way it needed to be developed before you kind of give us that big moment with Abby and Joel. And that means that they might actually change the narrative of part 2, at least the structure of it. Maybe overall the main story will stay the same, but they'll change the structure to flesh out the characters more, specifically Abby, before she hits Joel and before we see that big moment between the two of them, which leads to the revenge story that's very dominant in part 2. Now, the other part of it is who could play Abby. Now, I don't have a actor preference or anything like that, but obviously in this particular picture we see the model that they used for Abby's face. Now, I'm not saying that they should use the same person because she's not an actor, she's a model. What I am saying is that they need to maybe give us an Abby that looks closer to the game Abby. I'm not just talking about the physique, I'm also talking about the facial expressions and what she looks like. Because a lot of fans had a lot of problems with the casting of Ellie, specifically because she didn't look like Ellie. So I think a smart thing to do would be to use that as a lesson learned and kind of give us an Abby that looks closer to her video game counterpart. Now, honestly, my own opinion is that I don't care what the character looks like in the TV adaptation as far as they portray the character well, but I know that a lot of people had a lot of problems with the way that the characters looked in the TV adaptation and how they look different than the video game. So maybe this one instance would be a good time to make Abby look closer to what she looked like in the game. And maybe, just maybe, they could have her physique be more reasonable and realistic. You know what I mean? Because obviously another major flaw and major backlash that they got for part 2 was that Abby looks like Dwayne Johnson or Arnold or someone like that. So to fix that problem, maybe they could give us an Abby that's more visibly strong but more realistically strong and not as bodybuilder looking as she did in the game. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to go through in this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.